Hello and welcome to the General's Reviews. I'm Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostik 80 from the Full Force podcast, and I'm joining Justin Bell from What's on Joe Mind and GeneralsJoes to bring you this review of the GIJoe Collectors Club FSS 4 Calvin Jammer Mondale. Before Justin takes a look at the figure, let's go into the history of the character from his first appearance through to now. The first version of the character was released in the UK with the Action Force Command Centre by Palitoy in 1984 and has a total of 3 known colour variations. The Command Centre was a repainted 1983 GIJoe Headquarters Command Centre and also came with GIJoe, a repainted 1983 Gung Ho. Jammer, real name Calvin Mondale, was born in New York but moved to the UK to join Action Force and help develop the Command Centre's communication systems. The entire body and head sculpt is the 1983 GIJoe Swivel Arm Stalker. The main version and the most recognisable colour scheme is the classic green with black camo, red beret and red Z-Force logo on the chest. There is also a version with a light green base colour with a darker green camo instead of the black. This version came in a basic bubble on card with Stalker's machine gun. The rarest of the 3 versions, and a very expensive find if you can get a bagged one, is the No Camo Jammer. This version is simply a light green colour with no camo as the nickname suggests. In 2010, the GIJoe Collectors Club released an exclusive Z-Force 3-pack bagged set for the Providence, Rhode Island International GIJoe Convention. In that set was Calvin Jammer Mondale, Edwin Lifeline Steen and Rico Gaucho Gonzalez. This second version of Jammer was made up of a number of different parts, including 2004 Sergeant Stalker's head, 83 Stalker's arms, 82 Cobra Officer's torso, 86 Roadblock's waist and 1991 General Hawk's legs. He came with a black backpack, a black antenna, a black radio, a black hose, a grey submachine gun and a clear display stand. The FSS version Justin is looking at today is only the 3rd version of the figure and homages both the original and the 2010 convention exclusive. So without further ado, here is Justin with the review.
This is Justin from GeneralsJoes.com with a GeneralsJoe Intel look at the GIJoe Collectors Club Figure Subscription Service 4.0 Jammer, who is, or technically it's Calvin Jammer Mondale. Didn't have the trademark rights to just use Jammer apparently. Now we're going to look at the packaging first, as we usually do. They presented Jammer on a vintage style card like they do with pretty much every of these FSS figures, which is interesting because Jammer was actually originally an Action Force release for Europe and was not single carded in the same way that we're all used to seeing. So this is really the first time you've gotten a character like Jammer in this kind of format, and it's a pretty neat touch. The package art is phenomenal. I really like the look of the art. I'm guessing this is an Adam Rich's special. He's done a lot of the figure subscription service package art. Does a fantastic job, and there's certainly no exception here. I really love the camouflage pattern he's worked in there, the Z-Force logo, or for those of you in Great Britain, the Z-Force logo. And he's got the little Special Action Force logo on the left sleeve there as well. Very nice representation. I like how he's holding the actual gun that he comes with too. You can see in the package we've got the nice weapon right here. He's got the pistol. He's got the dial tone backpack repainted in the Z-Force green color, which is really nice. The package is really great. Z-Force Communications up here, codename Calvin Jammer Mondale. The Hasbro logo, the GIJoe Club exclusive on the upper right left-hand corner. And it's GIJoe, a real American hero, even though he is, in this case, a real European hero. And then we can look at the back of the package, and it's pretty much the same formula as we've seen. The big close-up of the package art here, which looks really nice, and a bigger, more close-up look. Then we've got the file card down below. And this is actually the second time the GIJoe Collectors Club has released a version of Jammer. Back in 2010, I believe it was, they did a Red Shadows convention exclusive set, and Jammer was one of the figures they used in that particular case as well. I will be brutally honest, I have not compared file cards, so I don't know if they just simply carried that file card over into this one, but whatever the case may be, there's the file card on the back there. And it's really a nice presentation. I love the look of the Jammer character on the card art. I love that they're just doing Jammer. I'm a big fan of the Z-Force branch of Action Force, so anytime we see something like that out here, I'm pretty psyched for that. So they did a great job of the packaging, as they usually do, very vintage style, and a very nice touch, and some great new art by Adam Rich's, and some nice presentation. So that's a look at the packaging. We will crack this bad boy open, and we will take a look at the figure itself coming up. This is Justin from GeneralsJoes.com with a look at the figure subscription service Calvin Jammer Mondale from the GIJoe Collectors Club. I was going to do this whole review in a British accent, but I figured, number one, it'd probably be offensive. Number 2, the 4 people who actually watch these videos on a regular basis might not like it. And number 3, probably about 75% of these things are done in a British accent anyway, and I thought maybe another one might be overkill. But we're looking at Jammer, as I will call him throughout this review, even though his name is technically Calvin Jammer Mondale, as you can see down on the battle stand he is standing on. It's a silver stand, because the G.I. Joe Collectors Club likes to include silver stands with all of their foreign release figures. And yes, Jammer is indeed a modern version of a foreign figure who is known just as Jammer. Back in the day, you can see that logo on his left arm, the SAF, the Special Action Force, is a reference to Palitoy's Action Force line, which showed up in Europe in the 80s, was Europe's version of G.I. Joe, although it was just called Action Force back then, not Special Action Force. What they did is they typically took some familiar G.I. Joe Real American Hero figures, maybe changed their colors up a little bit, gave them new code names, new birthplaces, stuff like that, turned them into exclusively European characters, which is pretty cool. And Jammer is one of those characters. He was a repainted version 1 Stalker. Back in the day, I think, I don't think the camouflage is a whole lot different. The paint might have been slightly different, but they gave him a little red beret and the Z-Force logo on his chest. I am going to be saying Z-Force throughout this review because I don't want Chris McLeod kicking my ass, because us Americans like to call them Z-Force, but I guess technically it's Z-Force. So as you can see, the Collectors Club did a pretty nice job bringing Jammer into a more modern format. He has got, from the neck down, from the neck down except the arms, it's the repurposed version of the Attack on Cobra Island 25th Anniversary Zap, which is really cool. I like that kind of updated original 13 tooling use. The torso still looks pretty outdated, I will say that. It's a little small, a little undetailed, especially compared to the arms, which are actually, you can see they're pretty thick and pretty baggy. They are the Pursuit of Cobra Shock Trooper arms. So those look a little unusual compared to the rest of the body, which is kind of slim and a little bit softly sculpted. But where this figure really shines, though, is the camouflage. I really like the green, the shade of green and red, which is very Z-Force-ish. Anybody who's collected any of those Z-Force figures from back in the day knows that green, red, and black color scheme is pretty unique to them. And you can see the camouflage pattern, kind of the streaky, uneven camouflage is done really nicely. It's a lot different than the version 1 Stalker or the Jammer figure that you might have seen, but it looks very nice. I really like that application. He comes with a bunch of different accessories, as you can see. He's got his removable beret. The head sculpt originally came with a Tiger Force version of Stalker from a convention set a couple years ago, sculpted and designed by Boss Fight Studios. He has got his green repaint of the dial tone backpack. One complaint I have, the peg and the hole are a little bit misformed. The peg is a little bit too big for the hole, so you see the backpack can kind of sometimes sit there at a funky angle. And the use of the dial tone backpack is interesting. I've always considered that backpack kind of unique to dial tone, so it's a little strange it appears here, although he is a communication specialist, so it does make some sense. Comes off, it's got that flip down mouthpiece just like we're all used to. He's got a great Union Jack on his right shoulder. Very nice paint applications there. He's got his machine gun here. He's got a nice little shin holster or calf holster with a removable pistol. Ankle holster, I guess is the right term. He's got his holster on his hip. That's part of the reason I love this base figure so much. I like all the different holsters that he's got. The one on his left, on his hip here, they actually don't use for a gun. They've actually included a little green smartphone that he comes with. And that comes out. So he's got a pretty decent number of accessories. I really like how he's decked out. Very neat selection of pretty cool gear for a communications specialist. A lot of people have been complaining a little bit about him, I think mostly because of the newer sculpted arms compared to the old sculpt of the rest of the body. Doesn't look all that natural, but I think he looks pretty cool. I'm okay with Jammer as he stands. He's not perfect. He's not one of the best FSS figures they've done so far, but he's pretty good. I'll take him. I'll take any Action Force updated figures we can possibly get. So I approve of this one, and we'll take a look at a comparison between him and the previous G.I. Joe Collectors Club Jammer figure, which came in a convention set in 2010, in just a minute. Alright, with these reviews, I try to do some kind of comparison review, so you can look at a vintage version and compare it to a modern version and kind of see the differences between them. Since so many of these figure subscription service figures are modern updates to classic figures, having a little bit of a disadvantage because I actually do not have a vintage jammer. I don't have the original jammer from 1983, 82. Whenever he appeared, I apologize, Dave Tree and Chris McLeod. I should be ashamed of myself for my lack of Action Force expertise. But I don't have an original jammer. What I do have is the version from the Vacation in the Shadows 2010 convention set. The convention was in Providence, Rhode Island that year. One of my favorite conventions because it was a 3.5-hour drive away and gave us the Red Shadows in O-ring form. It was actually the last O-ring convention set, interestingly enough, which makes me a little sad, but they've made some great strides since then, obviously. But as you can see, the convention version of Jammer has pretty intricate camouflage pattern, pretty equivalent to what we got with the modern form. And as you can see, because this is a convention figure that was made relatively recently, his O-ring is actually intact, believe it or not. One of the few O-ring figures that I've grabbed off my display shelves that was actually intact. I really like the camouflage patterns on both figures. It is a little bit more intricate on the O-ring version of Jammer, interestingly enough, but it's a really nice pattern. What they used for this O-ring version of Jammer was a comic pack stalker that they were doing back in those days. They were doing these comic pack figures, from right around 2003 to 2005, where they would basically take classic tooled figures and give them new heads and kind of give them new life, which was cool. We really loved those back in those good old days. It was really a cool way to get the October Guard figures and some updates like that. They did almost the entire original 13 that way. If you count the convention exclusive Grand Slam and Flash, they did do the entire original 13 that way, which is really neat. But I digress. They took that stalker and they gave him the little Z-Force logo, altered his colors a little bit and turned him into Jammer, which is kind of cool. And it's similar to what they did here. They've got the Z-Force logo, the red beret, for the updated Jammer. One thing you'll notice that's a little bit different is Jammer actually, back in the day, since he was based on, and actually this version of Jammer is a little bit different. The original Jammer was a Stalker repaint, and Stalker had that typical original 13 double strap double strap web gear. This version of Jammer actually has the Cobra Officer torso, which is kind of the more intricate web gear with the pouches and the cross straps and all that stuff. This modern version of Jammer has actually the defense or Attack of Cobra Island Zap web gear along with the parts. So pretty cool to think that actually Jammer has appeared in all three of kind of those original 13 torso types. And I know there's more than three, but those three common ones with the double web gear and the Cobra Officer web gear and the Zap web gear. So kind of interesting that they added some of that variation. And if you really want it to be vintage accurate, you can get that web gear off. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, which is why I didn't do it for the review. But you can get it off if you really try. If you really want it off permanently, you can snip it and get it off there. And then you can replace it either with the 25th anniversary double strap web gear or some Cobra Officer web gear if you really want to be vintage accurate. I don't know if anybody cares about Jammer enough to go that far, but if you do, you can. And anyway, so that's a look at this comparison between the modern Jammer and the 2010 convention version of Jammer. Jammer is not a perfect figure by any stretch of the imagination. He's got some issues, specifically in the parts choice with the arms compared to his torso and the rest of his body. His beret falls off relatively easily, but he still looks really cool. I like the updated head sculpt. I like that they went with more modern arms because it gives him some enhanced articulation. As you can see, he holds his machine gun pretty well. I like the little canteen at the back. I like the different holsters. Those are all really nice touches. The figure itself is pretty cool. I've heard a lot of complaints about it, for various different reasons. But really, I think it's a great figure. It's for the figure subscription service stuff. When you're talking about paying $25 to $30 a figure, some folks have some opinions about what kind of figures you should get for that price. I've got my own opinions on that as well. I would say Jammers might be stretching it a little bit. Might not be quite as nice a figure as one might hope to get for $30 or $35. But he's got all the right hallmarks. He looks really cool posed with Quarrel and even with Big Ben and with Bombardier. It's kind of we're forming a nice little cadre of European figures here, which is neat. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how far that'll continue after this year, but we've got one more FSS to go, so hopefully FSS 5 might even give us a few more British figures, or European figures, I guess would be more appropriate. But Jammer is a good figure. He's not fantastic. He has not been the highlight of the FSS by far, but not a bad figure. And if you haven't gotten one yet, I think you should seriously consider picking him up. He is worth the price, and he is a nice update to your British Action Force set. So definitely go and get him if you haven't gotten him already. Maybe the club will have him available at the club store. Time will tell. But that is my look at Calvin Jammer Mondale from the Figure Subscription Service, courtesy of the G.I. Joe Collectors Club. Thank you once again to Christopher McLeod from the Full Force Podcast for contributing to this. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give me a thumbs up down below, or give me a comment if you think there was some stuff I could do better. I'm sure there was quite a few things I could have done better. So let me know that too, but consider subscribing if you liked what you saw, and hopefully more to come. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this review by Justin Bell of GeneralsJoes.com and What's on Joe Mind, and from myself, Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostik 80 from the Full Force. If you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think on any of our numerous social networking platforms. Goodbye, and see you next time for another Generals Review.